Welcome to Student of the Game podcast, where we help you master the fundamentals, fall in love with practice, and win at the game of life. I'm your host, Brad Noll. Welcome to the classroom. Welcome back to the Huddle. This is my take on our recent episode with Dustin McKibben, owner of Art Home Photo. Dustin is the owner and visionary behind Art Home Photo. It's a leading real estate marketing company here, founded in 2017. Art Home Photo began to flourish in 2020. Dustin successfully is carving out a niche in the real estate industry and building a highly skilled and successful team. What a great episode. I can just tell you from the people listening so far, they just said it was a very natural, very organic conversation. It was one that we just kept riffing and kept going. And we talked about culture, something that's really important for me, something as we build our team. If you're somebody that is a leader, which is everybody, you lead somebody. You lead your family, you lead your school, you lead your classroom, you lead your organization, you lead your kids. You are a leader if you're listening to this. You lead somebody. And culture is important. Culture is one of those things that I think everybody's got maybe a little different definition of what culture is. But this is really important to Dustin. As you're building a team, you got to have the right fit. You got to have the right people. Think about, how many sports organizations there are, how many good teams there are. But it's the locker room that wins the games. The locker room. People ask me all the time, what are some of my favorite stories from, playing Division I basketball? And, the games were great. I do remember the games, but what I remember more than the games are the trips that we took, the flights that we were on, all the behind the scenes things that were the inside jokes that happened to us. The locker room is where you build culture. You don't build culture during the game, you build it in the locker room. And this is something that Dustin talked about. It's really important. As he builds his team, one of the things that he cares most about is building a culture of compassion. And he had a couple stories. One of his favorite stories was, when he was back in the day in school, in college, he said he wasn't the brightest, wasn't the smartest, but nobody was going to outserve him. And one of his roommates was the best photographer in his class. And so he just kept loving on him, building a relationship, deepening a relationship, asking more and more questions, staying curious. And through that, developed a fantastic eye for photos, for film, videography, and really just started doing weddings. Did tons of weddings. I think he said he does like 300 weddings. And so now he can do the weddings in his sleep. But there's a lot of things that he does that he just truly cares about. But as he's building this team and as his business is growing, and we all can relate to this, like as your kids get older, as your team grows, as you grow in your career, what is it that's going to take you to that next level? I believe it's compassion for others. And it's about one of my, I guess, things that I try to strive for every single day is I want to help other people win. Help other people win. People ask me all the time as far as, hey, how do you build a real estate business? How do you do this? How do you do this? And so finally, I think I was on vacation where I do my best thinking. I was reading a book and it just kind of hit me. Like when people are asking me how I did something, HOW stands for helping others win. That's how I did it. I didn't have some magic formula. I didn't have some magic success. This is what you have to do with your daily calendar to win. It's how many other people can I help? And that's really what builds culture. If you think about being on a team, if I'm all about my points and my stats, you're not a very good teammate. If you're all about how can I help my team flourish? How can I put my team on a pedestal? If I'm a music producer, I want to make sure the artists that are on my label are famous, and I want to help get them famous. I've told that to my team. My job is to make you famous. Dustin, there's three key takeaways I felt from this episode. Dustin talked about relationships as a business cornerstone, growth through delegation, and just finding a joy in serving. So let's talk about that. Let's dive into this for just a little bit. Relationships as a business cornerstone. How do you do that? How do you build and maintain strong personal and professional relationships? How do you do that? I think most of us, what happens is, we want to build relationships because of what we're going to get from it. Right? I mean, if you're being honest with yourself, like, what are you going to get from it? And, I think we have to take a step back and we have to say, no, my job as a decent human being is to connect with others, like building community, building that sense of community, connecting with other people. That's where it starts. Once you connect with people, there's going to be a group of those people you connect with that want to have a conversation. And if you're a salesperson, those conversations lead to introductions. Not all conversations, but some conversations lead to introductions for the product or service that you represent. And then a portion of those introductions lead to sales, and everything reverts back to the mean. And so sales is a numbers game. Leadership is a numbers game. Not everybody is going to be ready for the message that you have. But if you just keep what's top of mind to yourself, if you just keep the connection top of mind, that is the cornerstone. That's building relationships. And that's building relationships for the sake of building relationships, not because of what I'm going to get from it. If you're listening to this podcast because of what you're going to get, that's awesome. I'm a fan of that. But what if you sent this to somebody? What if you sent one of these episodes that really impacted you? Or what if you heard an episode that you knew would impact somebody else? What if you sent it to them? It's not about what you get, right? It's about what you're giving out. And deepening those relationships starts with connections. So that's my word of the year. That's my family word of the year. It's connections. And that's what we're in our business. That's what we're talking about is how do we connect with people? And that's the cornerstone. Time out. Student of the Game is brought to you by Noll Team Real Estate. Our mission is to eradicate mediocre real estate transactions. On your largest financial purchase, you shouldn't have to deal with average. We do this by helping you save time, reduce your stress, and helping you keep as much money in your pocket as we can. You can help us out by introducing us to your friends or family who want to make confident real estate decisions, whether buying, selling, building, or investing. At Noll Team Real Estate, we are connected to a group of realtors who sell 1 in every 8 homes in North America. If you know someone moving out of your area, there's a great chance we can connect them to somebody we know, like, and trust. Remember, relationships win. Now back to the show. He talked about growth through delegation. All right, I want to touch on this a little bit. Effective delegation versus abdication. You've heard both of those terms most likely. All right, delegation. Giving your responsibility away to somebody else. Is that really the definition, though? I want to challenge you on this. I think a lot of times people, when they think delegate, they think of, I'm in charge of something. Now I'm going to take this off of my plate and give it to somebody else so that it frees me up. Personally, I think that's abdication. Abdication is more of a straight line. I don't have time for this, or this is not my job description. I'm going to give this away to somebody else. I abdicate the dishes to my kids. Like, they can go do the dishes. That's abdication. But what happens if I don't check on them? What happens if they didn't do it right? What happens if they need a little coaching? That's delegation. I think great leadership is through delegation. Delegation is more of a loop. Think about this. When's the last time you delegated something and then you were frustrated that person that you delegated it to didn't get it done? Whose fault is that? And one of our core values is earn everything. So if you're on our team and you're frustrated because something didn't get done that you delegated, earn everything means you didn't delegate. You didn't close that feedback loop. You didn't come back and ask them if they needed help on something. So anyway, wanted to let you know that delegation is leadership. Abdication is not leadership. Think about those terms. Just maybe spend some time thinking about, are you abdicating or are you delegating? The last key takeaway, joy in serving. He talked about finding fulfillment in serving clients and witnessing significant life events beyond business transactions. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that, you take somebody who is a technician, right? At face value, Dustin takes pictures of homes at face value. But he talked about his high empathetic side that he has, where he understands this is a stressful situation. He understands that this is a tough time for, a seller, a home seller. I actually just experienced this myself. So interesting story. We had Dustin take a video, great video. It was an awesome video. It was one of our listings. I mean, we make awesome videos. So if you're somebody that needs to sell your home, we're going to make an awesome video. And if we don't do awesome video, they're going to be awesome photos. Dustin does a fantastic job. But here's really the where empathy comes into play. When he goes and takes these photos, he understands that there's a stressful time that these people are going through. We talk about this in real estate, that when somebody's selling their home or somebody's buying a home, there's 2 stresses. One is the reason for the move, and 2 is the actual move itself. Think about that. Think about there's 2 stresses. So what we're talking about here is understanding how to connect empathetically to people going through a stressful situation. So I don't care what it is, right? I mean, if I'm throwing an event and I'm ordering pens and I need those pens for the event, a pen isn't going to change my life, but you know what's going to happen is I'm going to stress out if I don't get those pens in time. I'm going to stress out if I don't get my t-shirts in time. I'm going to stress out if, my I'm turning in my books to my accountant and those aren't getting done. Everybody has these stress triggers, and when you're moving, there's two of them. And so he talked about going in and understanding how to sit with a seller and knowing that, maybe some things need moved in a house. But when you can understand how to have empathy, it changes the game. He said his first couple real estate clients he got from sellers that referred him to other sellers. It wasn't realtors referring to realtors, it was sellers. An example I have of this, as far as like just the joy in serving, I had so much joy in serving my clients, and I'm going to admit this, and I lost out on the empathy for a second. I believe I've got very strong empathetic tendencies, but very low sympathetic tendencies. You can ask my children about this. I do not sympathize. Like, I do not have sympathy for a lot of people. I have very high empathy for a lot of people. So I can feel what you're feeling. I want to go through that with you. But to me, sympathy kind of sounds like excuses. So that's just who I am. But here's an example of when I failed to empathize with a client of ours. Recently, we did a video. It was an awesome video, and I was pretty proud of it, to be honest. And I sent it to our seller a couple of weeks ahead of getting their home on the market, and the seller never responded. And this was odd because, they asked for it, and they were checking in, and we had some routine conversations that I thought it would come up in conversation, never did. Well, eventually it came up in a conversation again. And I just asked the seller, I said, excuse me, right before we get ready to put your home on the market, I never really got any feedback of what you thought of the video. And you know what she told me? She said, Brad, I haven't been able to pull myself to watch it yet because I know I'm going to miss this home. We've raised our kids here. We love this home. Man. And it set me back. It's like, am I just going through the motions? Are you just is there something in your life that you're just going through the motions? Are you being transactional? I was being transactional. Even though I'm highly relational, I'm very empathetic, I caught myself going through the motions, doing the best I could to serve her transactional needs, and yet forgetting about the emotional needs. There's a joy in the service we provide people in our real estate business. There's a true joy in it. But there's also an art. There's an art to how you go about deepening relationships with people. Dustin talked about his business is exploding. The challenge with a business that's growing that fast is you've got to be able to manage and maintain your culture and improve your culture. And you have to have compassion while doing it. So shout out to Dustin. It was a great episode. The feedback we've gotten has been fantastic. So do us a favor, subscribe to this podcast. We're going to come out with episodes where we have on people that, are just like you and me. They've been through a lot. They've had some success, and they're willing to talk about, what got them there. So as we like to say, we want to help you master the fundamentals, fall in love with practice, so eventually you can win at the game of life. And as you know, I'm cheering for you. That's a wrap. Thanks for listening. And remember, relationships win. Thanks for listening to Student of the Game podcast. Whatever game you are playing, I'm cheering for you. See you in the next class.